Well, this is very strange. Coming onto this show without an ad at the beginning, without a Hall of Fame or a future Hall of Fame college football or college basketball coach. So this is going to be a little different. I've done this before, but it's been a while. So welcome everybody to Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. It's 9:02 p.m. as we hit the airwaves following the Iowa Hawkeyes, the men's basketball squad, kicking off their season unofficially with their 102-81 victory over Minnesota-Duluth. We've got your recap and some takeaways from today's game inside Carver Hawkeye Arena. Of course, you know the regular season officially beginning on November 4th. But the Hawkeyes against a very good Division II team. Division II, but a very good Division II team. Taking care of business. It wasn't always pretty. We're going to go through some of the highs and some of the lows. But, you know, again, it's the exhibition game. A lot of these guys are new. How many new faces do we see today? We saw, 3 guys that actually played. You know, I am not the junkie. I see that we've got James, we've got Doug here waiting on hold. I am not the junkie as it relates to maybe some off-season stuff, as I know other people are in the men's basketball stratosphere. Not that I don't fully follow everything, but as it relates to some of the young guys, I was actually surprised by the fact that we didn't see walk-ons. We didn't see Chris Tadjo. Now, maybe Tadjo's hurt. We'll talk about that. But again, Iowa winning 102-81. And really, it was led by Josh Dix, who I thought was the player of the game. We don't have an official player of the game for this show right now, at least today. 22 points, though, for Josh on a very efficient 9 of 12 from the field. Also added 3 boards, 3 assists, and 0 turns. I think by far he was the best player on the floor. Maybe I shouldn't say that, though, because Peyton Sanford ended up with 23 on 9 of 16 shooting, although he struggled from 3. He was 1 of 6, did add 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Owen Freeman also efficient, very efficient, 21 points, 10 of 12, had 8 rebounds, but had 3 turnovers. And turnovers were the bugaboo tonight, folks. 12 turnovers for Iowa. And you may say, well, it's not a terrible number. Minnesota-Duluth ended up with 17. I think the nature of the turnovers was what got under the skin of Fran McCaffrey, and it's part of the reason why we saw Cory leave and not really return until the tail end of this game. Drew Thelwell was very limited with his minutes. Frankly, I didn't think Brock Harding played well at all. His stat line, not good. 1 of 7 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3, 6 assists but 3 turns. And a couple of those were just inexplicable turnovers. But Drew Thelwell didn't play either. If there's one thing to focus in on that is in need of some serious improvement, or reparations, if that's the right word. Is that the right word I'm looking for? It's turnovers, right? Protecting the ball, and it's the point guards stepping up as those leaders and being able to handle the ball and not turn the ball over. Brock Harding, a very good passer, really good vision. Drew Thelwell's a more experienced, seasoned guy, but he's not played at this level. So there is going to be a learning curve there. Hopefully, this kind of got some of these things out of the system of these younger players, and you know, the time we hit the game 1, a little under 2 weeks from today, things will be a little bit smoother sailing. So let's go to our call-in line. We got Doug here. Doug, I knew you'd be here. I knew if I did an exhibition post-game show, you would find a way to be here. So thank you for taking the time.
Well, me and Dad were about ready to go to the game tonight. We're going to go to the Northwestern game tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that.
You just stayed down there, Doug.
That's what we were contemplating, but, you know, just time, money, and all that. But, yeah, so I think nothing changed. The needle didn't change for most people. What expected to happen happened. Their defense was what their defense was. If you believed a lot of the same things that you always believe about Hawkeye basketball, they pretty much were true. And but I still am very optimistic. I thought the big 3 played very well. The point guard position definitely scares me. You just need to get Harding making shots. You know, that 1 for 7 is not that hurts. But I think he's a floor general. I don't think we need him to average a bunch of points. But and then I thought Logi at times, because there's some people were questioning how Logi was playing above Seydu. Well, Logi's improved quite a bit over the summer, and he's worked hard. You can see it physically. You can see that Logi is a much better player and understands the system a lot better. I was told the reason why Chris Taggio might be redshirted and might not play very much is he just hasn't got the system down yet. And just, this might be a developmental year for him. That doesn't mean anything about his talent. It just means he might just need a year to learn the system and develop a little bit.
Well, that doesn't explain why was he not on the floor for an exhibition game.
I don't know. He just went with the guys that he knew were going to play this year, I imagine. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't lose any eligibility on the floor. I don't have a reason why he wouldn't play if he was healthy. But I do know that there was concerns about he just hasn't got the system yet. So,
sure.
I'm not too worried about Chris Taggio and his future at Iowa. At least I hope not. But like I said, nothing changed how I felt about the team too much today because it is what it is. I mean, but Minnesota-Duluth is not a typical D2 team. I mean, they have a huge athletic budget because of hockey. They spend money on basketball. They have better facilities than most D2 schools. I mean, they're better than Texas A&M, whatever, and Southern. So, so I mean, they're like I said, they're better than probably the first two D1 schools we play. So, but yeah, we probably should have won by more than 21 points. But it is what it is. If you believe that the season's hopeless, you probably still believe that. If you are optimistic, you probably still believe you're optimistic. So,
Doug, I want to ask you about your thoughts on Peyton. How'd you think he played tonight?
I wish he would have shot better. I thought he played okay. I didn't think anyone, other than Dix, I didn't think anyone played extremely well. So, I think they all struggled. It's just the first game. I mean, I think, I kind of wish I wish all 13 guys that, I don't know if 13 guys played. I wish everyone that played would have played a little bit better defense. They got blown by a couple times, and I was just like, that's not right.
Well, here's what I'll say, Doug. This was pretty typical, right? Like, as I'm watching the game, I'm sitting there like, once again, this is just Fran ball, right? Yep. This is Franskit ball, so to speak. Yep. I mean, this is just what he's going to do. He's going to have a team that he loves just having shooters everywhere, right? I'll just load the room up with guys who can shoot, Doug. Let's load it. And then they'll all just rain threes and we'll all just live happily ever after. Yep. Well, at some point, you're going to play D.
Well, they don't make them. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and there are going to be times where they don't make them. Did they learn anything in 2020, 2021, that season? Because that's what I don't know that this team is as talented, but that was the team. As I was watching them to start the game and just to watch how they started, like they started just jacking up threes. And I thought they worked the inside out. It was nice seeing Peyton and Price work off the dribble drive a little bit more. That was positive. We really didn't see anything too positive offensively from Brock or Drew Thelwell. That's to me, the big concern right now is point guard, because I don't want Josh Dix playing the point. I just think he's a much better player if he's not asked to facilitate. So, not that he can't, but they got to figure out who's the point guard, right? And I didn't see anything tonight that convinced me that Brock has an edge on Thelwell. Neither one of them were good. So,
and a lot of people were questioning. There's people on social media questioning. Well, we bring Drew in, he's not even the starter. When I was going into the game, this is what I said. I think that more says something about Harding than it does about Drew. But neither of them played well tonight, so I don't know what is going on in practice. Drew, like they keep on saying, was the winningest player in Morehead State's history. Well, hopefully he brings that to the Hawkeyes. yeah, there was again, if you
real quick, isn't Spencer Petras one of the all-time winningest players for Iowa football?
I believe you're probably correct. I would imagine Beathard is, but I don't know. But
no, Beathard's not. Beathard only played 2 years.
Oh, he was starters. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Petras is a starter. Petras played 2020, 2021, 2022. So he played 3, and I know 2020 was a shortened season, but not many quarterbacks play, and they won a lot of games during that stretch.
Yeah, it probably is a statistic that's meaningless, but I still think Drew will. We need Drew to play because there's just no depth in that backcourt, and I do think Brock will still do some of the things he did today. Like you said, there was a couple turnovers there where why make that pass? He needs to be more understanding that where his skill level. I'm not saying he can't make some of those Harlem Globetrotter passes or who was that guy? Jason Williams passes. I don't know if you remember Jason Williams.
Jason Williams, yeah.
White
Magic, right? The real White Magic. It wasn't really Fran. It was Jason Williams.
Yeah. I mean, he's not the M1 guy. You just play your game. I mean, like, one of the things about Jordan, he wasn't the best ball handler. Jordan Bohannon, he wasn't the best ball handler. He wasn't, that flashy, but he really wasn't that mistake prone. I mean, I could be wrong. He might be Iowa's all-time leading turnover guy, but Jordan was not that mistake prone, and that's really. And Mike Gesell is another one. I mean, I don't remember Mike ever really having 20, 25-point games, but Mike, was very good at – I mean, I thought 16 was a very good team despite not going to the Sweet 16. Say that. That was weird.
2016?
Yeah, with Mike Gesell and Sapp, Anthony Clemens, and what Iowa – what like Clemens and Gesell did that year, and they both kind of shared the point, is they just didn't make a lot of mistakes. And when Iowa went on, Iowa won their first 8 Big Ten games that year, and those two, and that's kind of what I would want from Harding and Drew is just be a floor general, don't make mistakes. I don't think either of them has a good 3-point shot at all. So, I mean, unless you're wide open, don't shoot. But they don't. Neither one of them has a good 3-point shot. I mean, you look at statistics, you look at and that's not necessarily anything to the point where it has to do anyway. I'd like to see Josh chuck up a couple more threes because he really does have a great shot. And I know those long twos he's good at, and he's good at that fadeaway But he needs to knock out 60, 70 threes this year. And Peyton needs to knock down 90. And whatever we get from Drew and Brock is a bonus.
What about Price?
Yeah, Price too. I thought Price at times, looked he tried to go in there once and really hard. And I was very proud of him for doing that because he went out, but
let me ask you this, because you're kind of like you are the epitome of an Iowa basketball junkie. If people don't know who you are, this is Doug. All right. And not the Doug from the Liberty Mutual commercials. This is Iowa Hawkeye Doug. And Doug, you are as big of an Iowa basketball fan as I know. So you're our analyst tonight without Gary here, and we'll have add James in here in a little bit. But I'm curious to ask you, get your opinion, because everyone wants my opinion on these things. Your opinion is just as valid. I want to know what you thought about Fran's rotation tonight and his substitution patterns. I thought they were a little bit precarious, or just maybe a little bit suspicious, almost odd, because to me, the way he and I can kind of understand doing what he did, but to me, he subbed like it was a regular game.
Yep.
This is not a regular game. Yeah. In my opinion, but I'm not a coach. To me, why are you I know you're trying to get guys in game mode, but don't you also want to use a game that doesn't count to do things, to experiment with different things? Like, I don't want to see the backups yanked because they're giving up a run. And that's what he did tonight. Every time Minnesota-Duluth would make a little run, we got to put the starters back in. I want to see, why did we not see what's his face, Seydu from Manhattan? I wanted to see him get an extended run in the second half. He did not. I would have liked to have seen Chris Taggio. I know he's struggling with the system. Let's see him in the game. Let's see Riley Mulvey earlier. Mulvey is so far off the radar right now, dog. Isn't that it? Talk about an incredible storyline. Here's a 7-footer from New York that you bring in. He's in his senior year, and he can't even sniff playing time in an exhibition.
The only thing I think, again, and you look at the plus 40 or whatever, the only thing I can think is they just played bad when they were in for the most part. But why, you're right. Why then just let them in and struggle through it and learn?
That's what for an exhibition, not a real game. I'm just for an exhibition. I would think this. If you're ever going to let a guy struggle, play through it, it'd be today.
I 100% agree with you because I really wanted to see Drew play more. I wanted to see Seydu play more, and it is disappointing because this is the game where I still don't know much about those players. Again, we didn't learn anything today. That's what that's the thing. We didn't like everything you believed beforehand. If you're an optimistic person, you still believe. If you're a negative person, you still believe. We just and that's the way it's going to be because that's the way Fran is. I totally agree. Why would you not use the opportunity to develop players? Not use the opportunity to teach other guys, situations. If you get, there.
I would like to. This is the press conference I'd actually like to be a part of today. I'd like to be able to ask Fran, not going after him. I'm just curious, like, how can you go after a guy when you win by 21 in an exhibition, Division II team? But I'd like to ask him, Fran, what's the reasoning on why Chris Taggio didn't play? Maybe he's dinged up, Doug. Maybe he's dinged up. Yeah. That's possible. But I just am curious because if it doesn't count, you don't see value in getting him in actual team action. I think there's value there. Yeah. And here's another guy who played a lot earlier than I would have anticipated, and that's Evan Bronze. He was in within the first 8 minutes of the game.
Yeah, he's going to be the backup 5. And that's I don't know how much as of now. Lodgy might be the backup 5, but
Owen's going to be playing a lot of minutes.
Let's hope so.
We know that. Well, assuming he can figure out the foul issues, yeah, he's going to be playing a lot of minutes, and Evan's got to figure it out offensively because he can't be a liability, just like he can't be a liability on one end. That's what my fear with Brock Harding.
Yes.
Not only did he not make threes tonight, he is not a good defender, Doug, and he's not going to be
him a couple times.
He looks like a Division II player physically. I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying he looks like a Division II player physically, and we knew that, right?
I've gotten to be by Brock a couple times. I was actually by his brother when we went down to San Diego, and his brother's like the same size as him. And Brock's not 6 foot tall even. I'm 6 foot, and he's 2 inches shorter than me. And I mean, I'm not trying to pick on the guy. He's at least 2 inches shorter than me, and he's if he's a $150, that's giving him some credit. But I don't know what they have. I think they have him listed at 6 foot, $170. I don't know, but he's a small dude. And I like I said, I have hope for the season. I think the Big Ten isn't great this year. I think a lot of the teams in the Big Ten. I think I don't think Purdue or Indiana. I think they are not great. I think there'll be a lot of parity in the Big Ten, but I still think the Big Ten will send 9 to 10 teams to the tournament. And that gives Iowa a chance. I mean, I think 14th place in the Big Ten will be 8-12, and 4th place will be 12-8. And I think Iowa will finish somewhere in between there. So, and today didn't change anything about that. So,
appreciate you calling in, Doug. And
my prediction.
No, I'm with you. I actually thought Lodgy played pretty well early. I don't know how many minutes he ended up with. 21 minutes for Lodgy. So of the 5 starters, he played the least. But he wasn't forcing shots tonight. And I think I have felt like in the past, Lodgy sometimes forces shots.
Yes.
He just, as soon as he gets the ball, he's looking at the rim every time. So he didn't do that tonight, which is good. He's got to be able to, I think one of the big keys, 2 big keys for me moving forward, Doug. Turnovers I'm not too worried about because I think they'll figure that out. They got a really seasoned guy in Drew Thelwell, and they got a guy who's not known to be a high turnover guy in Brock Harding.
Yeah.
But as it relates to the 2 big things that I think we need to see in the next 2 weeks, and I'm not there every day in practice, but point guard play's got to get better. Can't turn the ball over as much as Brock and Drew did collectively. And then who's going to be a factor inside other than Owen?
Yes.
I don't like. Is it Evan? Is it Sadu? Is it Logi? We expect Logi to be that, but Logi plays outside a lot. So to me, let's see Sadu or Logi become a force inside. We heard Jess Settles and his partner tonight were talking about how Logi had gained 13 pounds in the offseason. Good, use it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see you out shooting threes all season. You got enough 3-point shooters. We don't need Logi to be shooting all threes the rest of the year.
Did you see the high-low? Logi, they did it twice. The Logi made a great interior pass from the top of the key down to Owen. And I really did think that those two I thought the starting unit, other than Brock not really shooting well and Brock having 3 turnovers, played pretty well. And we know that Dix, Peyton, and Owen should all get 30 minutes a game. It's that other 110 minutes that I think we're all kind of worried about. The other 40 minutes at point guard, how that's going to be, who can rebound. I think that I wouldn't be too worried. I think, like I said, not playing Sadu, I think you're right. That just doesn't seem right. You needed, I think, as you said, he got mad at him and then puts him on the bench, and that
felt like it. Kind of felt like it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought Sadu looked pretty good in the first 10 minutes. Like he had like 3 or 4 rebounds, had a block shot or 2, had a nice finish inside, I think made a 3. I actually thought he looked pretty good early on. That's why I'm so surprised that Fran kind of went away from him. And it just here's the negative side of my analysis of this game, Doug. The negative side is it's like Fran defers. He just always defers to the guys that can score in bunches as opposed to deferring. Like the default is never who's going to buckle down and be a great defender and rebound. It's always who can I get in there who can make shots. And that's kind of how I felt like not saying that Aaron Eulis and Christian Williams and DeSante Bowen and those guys didn't earn the time. I get that. But I do feel like there were stretches of gameplay when they were at Iowa, where it's like, boy, you could use just having them in there, their defensive presence. But Fran doesn't think in that term. He thinks of who's making shots, who's not making shots. And so ultimately you're going to get the same style of team every year, and we know that.
Yeah, and that's why, just repeating what I said at the very beginning, this didn't change any feelings that anyone should have. This was very much a Fran exhibition game. And like those questions, I think we have 2 coaches that and I think Jess was even hinting at this during the broadcast. He just has his way of doing it. He's not going to change. Our coaches aren't going to change in year 25 and year 15.
Correct.
And that's the reason why I understand when people get, man, we need to change, because you get to the point where the unknown is more exciting than the known. Like I said, this just felt how a lot of Fran teams feel. And the same issues that we have, with defense, rebounding, some of those other things, toughness, again, scoring a bunch of points, chucking up a lot of threes. Those are normal things. Like I said, we're going to go to the game tomorrow. I'm looking forward to this season, and I thank you for doing this post game. I hope James has some insight. I hope that other people are just going, "Why are you doing a post game after an exhibition game?" But I really appreciate it, and you knew I would, so I appreciate that even more. Again, good luck to my Hawks tomorrow. I hope you have a great show tomorrow, Corey.
Thank you, Doug.
Go Hawks. So.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you. Yeah, we'll be back for men's post game after game 1, which is, I think, November 4th. Last look at the schedule. Let's add James. By the way, before we get to James, if you want to give us a quick call, I'm only going to be on here for probably 5 to 10 minutes longer. We'll take James' call and see if anybody else calls in. But the number is 515-635-1601, or you can join via StreamYard. That link is in our description. James, welcome to the show, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. This game doesn't make me feel any better or any worse. It just makes me feel the same as I felt about the season already. If that makes sense, right?
You're kind of like where Doug was.
Like it doesn't make me feel any different. Like I feel like what I was gonna do because they've been doing the same thing for 15 years. So It doesn't really make you feel any better. The 81 points does scare me a little bit on a D2 team, but
So let's just feel free, because I don't mind staying in here for an hour. Let me run through the box score, and James, you feel free to hop in here when we hit something that's of note. Iowa shot 59% for the game in this one. Shot 32% from three, 7 of 22. So it didn't jack up as many threes as they probably are going to throughout much of the regular season. I think you're going to see a lot of games where they're closer to 30. 13 of 18 from the free throw line, good for 72%. So, that's okay. 12
you have to be a
turnovers.
little better. But I mean, for your first game, sometimes you have rust, so a lot of that rust might happen too because you haven't played yet. So I give you a
Yeah,
first game, 2 games
I
kind
thought
of
their rebounding was suspect a couple of different time stretches of play. They ended up out rebounding the Dogs 36-31, beat Minnesota-Duluth in the paint 52-48. How much of these stats are skewed by how a game like this is played where you're trying to get your footing? Because, man, you should be able to dominate a
But I
Division II team.
also agree with what you said earlier, where rebounding scares me a lot because I feel like there's only really one guy that I trust rebounding, and that's Owen. And
But that's what I said.
what was the Owen issue last year? Foul trouble, right? If he gets in foul trouble, we're screwed.
Well,
in that.
that's why you heard what I said to Doug earlier, James. They've got to figure out not just who's the second guy in. They got to figure out who can produce inside with points, with rebounding, with shot blocking, rim protecting. Is it Evan Bronze? Is it Seydoux? Is it Dembele? Somebody's got to be a force, because it ain't Riley Mulvey, apparently, because that dude didn't play till like 5 minutes left in the game. So I think they got to figure it out between Dembele and Seydoux. But Evan Bronze was in the game in the first 6-7 minutes. So
No, I agree with you on those two. I feel like those two especially have, and obviously, Bronze is a senior, but I feel like those two have the most upside compared to the other two. Those are the two guys you probably need to step up the most compared to the other two because they're both sophomores. Isn't Seydoux a sophomore? I think Seydoux is a sophomore, right? So
yes.
You have to look at it from that perspective of you have to have those two guys step up because they're going to have the biggest impact maybe to the future or to the higher upside than what Evan does. But
I will say this: Iowa's bench outscored 35-27, and not many fast break points, just 7 for the Hawks. So that obviously you want to get out and run. But Iowa's going to be so reliant on that 3-point shot, and that's the biggest weapon and also the biggest fear for me is how reliant they are going to be throughout the year on the 3-point shot. And like I said, Brock, 1 of 7 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3, ended up with 2 points in 27 minutes, did have 6 assists, 3 turnovers. Josh Dix, 9 of 12 from the field, good for 22 points, and along with 3 assists, 3 rebounds. You have Owen Freeman, who had 21 points, 10 of 12 from the field as well, to go along with 8 rebounds. And then Peyton Sanford had 23 points on 9 of 16 shooting, just 1 of 6 from 3. But hey, you can get 23 on just 1 3 from Peyton. You're going to be okay with that. And filling up the stat sheet, you're going to see I think you're going to see a couple of triple doubles out of Peyton this year. That's a bold prediction because you don't see many in the men's game. It's not every day you get a Caitlin Clark-like performance out of a male player. So I think you're going to see a couple of triples this year, triple doubles out of Peyton, just because of where his length and his ability to knock down shots and free throws and whatnot. And he sees the court well. He's improved, I think, since last year. Those were your 3 leading scorers. And then Dembele ended up with 7 points on 3 of 5 shooting. Bronze scored 4, Thelwell 4, Traore 4, Cooper Koch 4. We haven't talked about him. Played 14 minutes, played really early. And man, he may be the 6th man right now, James. Cooper Koch.
I feel like he's your best option right now between him and Lodgy. I feel like your 2 best options for 6 man right now, just because Lodgy, obviously, he brings 2, but I'm kind of excited to see Cooper Koch and how he can grow and mature and all that stuff. But one thing I wanted to hit on was Peyton. Peyton's a great player, obviously, but you've seen last year where he was times where he would go on very bad streaks of shooting. He missed 5 threes in a row, and then
just last year, his whole career.
I mean, yeah, but his whole career. But last year, it stuck out to me a little bit more. That maybe because we had a little bit more shooters. I feel like the 2 years ago, 3 years ago, than we did last year, right? So maybe that's why it didn't stand out as much. But he's very streaky of a shooter, and that scares me too because it's you can't only have one guy you can really trust from 3 and Dix. I trust Peyton too, but I know he's very streaky, so sometimes I feel like it's hard to trust him compared to trusting Josh Dix as shooting the 3-pointer. So that's another scary thing that I think people don't really talk about it a lot.
And then the only other guy who double figures tonight was was Price, and he kind of came on late, hit a couple of threes, 11 points in 15 minutes of play. My guess is, James, he is going to be the sixth man. I'd hate to. I'd have a hard time banking on Cooper Koch jumping him in the rotation.
Price, but you said this before. Price needs to take that jump, right? He needs to show he can shoot, right? He needs to take that jump.
We've been told throughout the offseason, especially in the last month, James, that he has taken that jump. That he's gained all this weight, like Logi, that he's scoring inside and out. He's, kind of struggled to get going there early, but once he got the ball and got more opportunity late, he looked like the guy I expected him to look like. So I think the starting lineup is, I guess, all this being said, the starting lineup should be very much still up for grabs. I didn't see anything from Brock that convinced me he's the best option. And frankly, maybe, you're going to start Owen, you're going to start Peyton. I don't know that Logi's an undisputed starter. If Price plays really well, maybe you just go with a heavy shooting lineup and play Josh Dix at the one. I don't like that because I like the idea of a traditional point guard running the show. But
for sure,
hey, it's all about who deserves the most minutes. And I think I'll say this based on what we saw tonight, James. I think your five best players as a whole are Peyton, Owen, probably Price, probably Cooper, and Dembele. And I don't know that Harding and Thelwell, they got to work that out so far.
I feel like I agree with you though. Like I feel like Josh Dix shoots better off ball, right? Obviously, he shoots better off ball, right? And giving him the ball out of his hands, and then you kind of can get Drew. If you can get Drew or Brock to kind of start something, like I'm not even saying they have to be a shooter. Obviously, you need to be a shooter, but like I just want a point guard who can at least take care of the ball and make the right passes when the passes need to be made, right? Like that's one thing Connor McCaffrey did a really good job of. He wasn't a great scorer, right? But what he did a really good job of, took care of the ball. That's why he was such a good. That's why he's such an underrated player in the fact of those so many years, because he took care of the ball, didn't really make mistakes, and made the right pass when it needs to be made.
And I thought there were a couple of moments, not to really pick on Brock Harding, but there were a couple of moments tonight where Brock drove the ball hard inside. There was at least one where he had a wide open Peyton Sandford in the corner, and he tried to go up through two guys. There were a couple of those where he drove the ball and tried to finish instead of making the extra pass. And usually he's pass first. So at least that's what he showed his freshman year. He's a very good passer and has great vision. And so that's what they need out of him. But here's the other thing, James. Brock Harding, as I mentioned, was 0 for 3 from 3, and all those were open. He's got to make an open three-point shot. The only guys I want shooting contested threes would be the two Sanford boys and at times Josh Dix. I don't want Dembele shooting contested threes. I certainly don't want Owen shooting contested threes. I don't want a true freshman and Cooper Koch shooting contested threes.
Yeah.
So the guys that are going to shoot those, if you're not if you're not one of those three, you better be wide open and you better knock them down at least 40% of. If you're wide open, you should be able to make 35 to 40%.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And that's going to be probably the biggest interesting part. But it's good to at least get the win, obviously. And it's a team you should win against. But it's going to be interesting to see how you start. Obviously, like I told you the other day, Texas A&M Commerce is not a really good team, so you should be able to handle business on that one. On that side of things.
Wait a minute. You were complimenting Texas A&M Commerce.
I'm not complimenting them because they won that game, but they're not good. We still should beat them.
Who did they beat?
Missouri State was like 6th in the MVC, and they were picked last in their conference. So I felt like that was a solid win for them being picked last in their conference, at least.
Who was picked last? Commerce?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like it was a big good win for them being projected to finish last and beating Missouri State's projected to finish middle of the pack in MVC. That's the only point I was trying to make out of that whole thing.
I just didn't realize Texas A&M Commerce was Division I. That's
what
I did.
Are. They just got bumped up like a couple years ago, so they're kind of newer to Division I. But
glad I scheduled them.
But
can't wait to have, I don't think I have room in my title of these videos, these post-game shows, to write out Iowa, Texas A&M Commerce in the title. I don't think I have room for that, so I don't know how we're going to figure that out.
Yeah, but no, it'd be interesting to see. And I'm just one thing I want to get off. One thing I do want to go over before is like, I think we do need to find out if Tadra was hurt, because Tadra not playing is something that does kind of, you do a question of like, he's a freshman, right? Like this should be a game you should get him into, because you don't know how many opportunities you're going to get him into during the year.
Maybe he's hurt, James.
Yeah, That's what I'm saying. If he's not hurt, though, that's a bad look for him because you still have to give him in a game like this because he's a freshman, right? You don't know how many times you're going to get him in during the year, so you kind of got to look at him in a game like that.
I thought Fran approached this different than he has in past exhibitions, and I may be wrong on that. I don't I have a pretty good Iowa athletics memory, James, but maybe I'm off. I don't have a photographic memory when it comes to exhibition men's basketball games, but 1 minute for Chris Kingsbury, 1 minute for Moldy, 0 minutes for Tajo. So basically, Fran's saying, if we don't plan on playing you during the regular season, we're not playing you tonight. That's basically how he treated this. Now, the question is, did he treat it that way because it's an exhibition game? And yeah, I don't really know. Did he treat it this way because the game was actually fairly close at times? Or did he treat it this way because that's just how he's treating exhibitions? He's treating it like the regular season. I don't have the answer to that. I don't recall feeling this way during past exhibition games. Doesn't it? It seems like he's played everybody in the past in exhibition games, but I could be wrong on that. I'm certainly not going to take the time to go back and watch previous exhibitions. I'm not going to do that. I'll promise you that.
No, definitely. But I'll get off, and it was just good to get the win at least, and on to the next. And we just got to keep playing well during non-conference play because, it gets a little hairy when you get to conference play because you know what the Big Ten's going to be with all the additions of Oregon and all them other schools. So,
well, James, appreciate you calling in, sir. We'll talk to you tomorrow after an Iowa football win. How's that?
Yeah, for sure. Especially the second part. Iowa football win, hopefully. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, sir. All right. One final caller, I believe. Although the line is still open, I'll leave it open until we sign off. We've got Mr. Ryan here with us. Ryan.
Cory,
I'm great. Did you invest in Big Ten Plus for this game?
I actually had something I had to do tonight. I have no idea what happened other than I see the score right here, and I stumbled upon this show. So
that's kind of what I was. I had a couple of people, including our guy Kyle Spence, say, "Man, people can't question your dedication if you're doing the next post game show live." And I thought, there's going to be some people who didn't want to spend the money. They didn't want to spend the money, Ryan, and they're curious what the team looked like. So we had about 100 people at max. So that's not too bad for a Friday night after a men's basketball exhibition on October 25th. It's kind of an early exhibition. The women don't play for another 5 days. But, yeah, definitely go back and watch the rest of this.
How good your show is, Cory.
Well, I appreciate that, Ryan. I appreciate that. And, yeah, I mean, the bottom line is I think Doug and James summed it up well. You don't learn a lot from tonight other than individually. Peyton Sanford looked good. Didn't shoot the three ball well, but looked good everywhere else. Josh Dix was phenomenal. He was the player of the game without question. Owen Freeman was efficient. They got to figure out point guard, all right? And maybe this was just kind of an off night for Felwell and for Harding. And they got to figure out who's behind Owen Freeman. Because if he gets in foul trouble, I don't know who's playing behind him. I don't know if it's Dembele playing the 5. Is it really going to be Evan Bronze? I almost have a hard time believing it'll be Bronze. Is it Traore? Will he? Sounds like they don't plan on playing him at the 5 very much. And I thought his minutes tonight were a little bit odd. I said this to James, Ryan. I felt like Fran coached this game like he would a regular season game. And I can see value in doing that, but I can also see value in just playing everybody because you can do it without repercussions, right? Mm-hmm. Including Chris Tajo. You could have played Chris Tajo, the freshman. They don't.
He didn't play?
He didn't play. Didn't get to see on the floor. So unless he's hurt, but it sounds, Doug's all over this stuff. I haven't asked anybody, but it sounds like Chris is probably going to be redshirting. Cooper Koch played.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing, but he could have played tonight and kept the red shirt is all I'm saying.
True. So real quick question. Is this going to be the first year? I was 4 years old in 1979 when they won their last Big Ten title. I don't think you were even alive yet. You might have been. You look like you're in your mid-40s, but I'm not sure. Just kidding. Is this going to be the first year since 79 that we win a Big Ten championship? Okay, never mind.
Well, wouldn't that be ironic if they did? Ryan, wouldn't it be ironic if they did that? If they did that the first year of the expanded league with the 4 new teams from out west, that would be weird.
Well, what's so weird to me is I go back to Kenny Arnold, Steve Carfino, Bobby Hansen, Greg Stokes, Michael Payne, Mark Gannon, Kevin Boyle, those kind of guys. That was the first Iowa team, 81-82, when I really started getting into Iowa. And I feel like I've been a fan an awful long time, and I still have not seen a Big Ten championship. Now, I will say the 87 team was the best team in the Big Ten, even though Indiana won it all that year. We had 7 guys make the NBA that year, 30-5. We were unbelievable that year. However, I still have never seen a Big Ten basketball championship. Even though I was technically alive, I don't remember it. That's just insane to me. Now,
well, I think the bigger priority has got to be the Sweet 16. It's kind of like in college football now. Like, we can talk all we want about Big Ten titles, but it's more reasonable to expect Iowa football to make a 12-team playoff than it is to win a Big Ten title. It's going to be so hard to win a regular season Big Ten title with 18 teams. And I'd say the same thing about basketball. I mean, the women might be able to accomplish it because they're just a great elite program. The men are not there, and I don't know how they get there. It took the women getting an elite generational talent in Caitlin Clark to get there. Say what you want about Megan Gustafson, Kathleen Doyle, great players, but did not send this program to 2 straight national titles. So unless Fran McCaffrey finds his way into a generational player, he kind of had one in Luka Garza, and they've had a hard time maintaining. I mean, they didn't make a Sweet 16 with Luka. So, I mean, I think the Sweet 16's got to be the goal regardless. They got to make the tournament first, and I think they will. I haven't said that on record yet, but I will say that now. I think
really
they'll
think
make.
So?
Yeah,
the guy I'm really looking forward to seeing is the Manhattan transfer. Torrey, is it? And the reason I say that is he played against Kansas and UConn. And if you look at the stats he had in those games, he was like right in the neighborhood of 16-8 against that competition. Now, that screams all day long starter to me. Now, I haven't seen him play, so I'm just saying what I saw on the stat sheet.
Here's what I'll say about Seydou Traore. He played early. I thought he played well. Grabbed a couple of. Let me find his final stats. So for the night, he played 11 minutes, 4 points, 2 of 3 from the field, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Did have 2 turnovers. I thought Fran kind of pulled the plug on him early. I thought he played well early. Now his big problem were fouls tonight. He ended up with 3 fouls. Had 2 that took him out the remainder of the first half. And I thought it took a while for Fran to go back to him in the second. But I liked the flash I saw from him in the first. I just felt like Fran gave up on him a little too early in the game. Now, Fran treated this like any other game, so he took him out with like 8 minutes to go after that second foul in the first half, Ryan, and he was done for the first half. So that's Fran's prerogative. But I was impressed with his flash. He's a great athlete. I really like him as well. I agree with you. I thought we need to see more out of Drew Thelwell. Both those transfers, I think, could be high-impact guys this year. And, hey, one guy you haven't brought up that I have not spent enough time talking about tonight, and that's J.R. Koch's son. Cooper was really good and didn't force a lot of shots. He ended up he was 1 of 3 from 3, 1 of 5 overall, but didn't shoot a ton. Had the ball in his hands more than you'd think, and was off. He was on the floor early. I mean, he's going to probably be a top 7 rotational player, at least based on what we've seen so far. He was in there before Traore. He was in there before Thelwell. He's a true freshman. So I just think there's clearly a lot of room for growth with this team. And they got 2 weeks to kind of dissect. I think it's great having an early secret scrimmage, maybe not an early secret scrimmage, but the secret scrimmage and then an early exhibition. Give yourself some time here, 2 weeks before the start of the season, and you can play Texas A&M Commerce with fresh bodies.
Well, 2 thoughts I have. Number one, now granted, like I said, I did not watch the game, so rip me if you want for
They're going to rip you.
I didn't watch the game.
There will people that rip you because you came on here and started talking without watching the game, but it's not going to be me. I'm not going to rip you, Ryan.
I could care less, really. But 81 points against a D2 team, I mean, that's just a Fran defense we all know and hate.
Yep.
And then he did make a comment. I want to say it was on Media Day. And whenever now I know Fran is pretty prone to hyperbole and that kind of a thing. So you somewhat take it with a grain of salt. And what I'm about to say sounds very counterintuitive, but when you really look back, it's going to hopefully make sense. I really get nervous when Fran makes comments like, I'm very comfortable playing all 13 guys.
He says that every year, though, doesn't he, Ryan?
He kind of does, but
he really does.
Number one, is Riley Mulvey really worth playing? Okay,
he's not. Riley Mulvey is not. Riley Mulvey is not playing unless they play a true seven-footer.
Okay, and then if the Canadian guy Trejo, if he redshirts, you're down to 11. Okay. Yep. 11 is still too many.
They're not playing.
Teams go 8, max 9.
Timeout. They're not playing Kingsbury on a night in, night out basis. Remember,
I forgot. They gave him a ride.
So that's 10.
Okay. I forgot that they gave him a ride.
And are they going to play bronze every night?
Okay, now we're down to 9.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they will play. I mean, Doug seems convinced that bronze is the backup 5. But as long as Owen stays out of foul trouble, they may just play small ball when he's out. I don't know that they're going to go.
See, that's where I see that going. Kind of like last year, Laji did kind of play the pseudo backup 5.
Yep.
They'll probably bring I got to pronounce these names. Traore. They got to bring him in more than likely, or Cooper. Okay. Now that you talked me a little off the ledge, I feel a little better. I just think it's so important. I always go back to Gary Close's Wisconsin teams, and I do not care for the Badgers, but I have to admit, with a very similar skill set of a team, they really knew how to find a rotation of 8 and maximize everybody's role. And I don't think Fran has always been great at doing that.
So here's let me just give you a ranking as far as minutes. Guy that led the team in minutes played was Peyton with 33. Next would be Dix with 31. Then, actually, ironically enough, Brock Harding at 27. Owen Freeman at 26. Dembele at 21. So those were your 5 starters, folks. And then after that, Price had 15. Cooper Koch had 14. So we're up to 7 guys. Traore had 11. That's 8. And then 9/10 is going to be Thelwell and Bronze. Thelwell's going to play. So there's 9. And then if Bronze plays, you're at 10. I don't think Mulvey's going to play night in, night out. I don't think you're going to get who else am I missing? Tajo's not going to play at all. Kingsbury's not going to play. So I think you're going to be at 9. I think night in, night out, you'll have 9. And then maybe by the time things go down the stretch, I mean, who ends up – it's hard to foresee that, but who's going to work their way out of the lineup? I don't know. Maybe they'll go 9. I don't think 9's fine. I'm fine with 9.
What's your – if someone put a gun to your head right now and said, predict the final season record and Big Ten record, just spitballing right now, what would you say?
I'll go 20 conference games. I'll say 12 and 8.
Really?
Yeah. I think they'll go 12 and 8. I think they'll go 12 and 8, get in comfortably. The Big Ten's a bear. I mean, it's going to be a bear in every sport now with the 4 West Coast teams added. It was already one of the strongest Big Ten men's basketball conferences year in and year out, regardless of postseason struggles. And I think you had USC and an Oregon team that's been – I mean, look what Oregon did to Iowa a few years back in the tournament. And then UCLA's maybe the biggest blue blood in all of the sport. And then Washington's had good years. I think they can get to 12 and 8 with this team because I think they'll shoot well enough. They got too many shooters. It's like 2020, 2021, that season with Bohannon and Frederick and Wieskamp and Garza. Like, they just had guys everywhere. They didn't play defense, but they had guys everywhere. And they ended up getting beaten in the second round to Oregon because they couldn't shoot. They couldn't defend, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you say 12 and 8, and I really have a lot of respect for your basketball IQ. It's just with such a poor year, I mean, we're a poor defensive team. We're like, obviously the opposite of the football team. 12 wins seems high for a bad defensive team. And when you're Minnesota-Duluth getting 81 on us.
Well,
but I didn't watch it, so,
It is a good Division II team. They beat the national champion from last year. So They actually beat that team that won the national championship. They beat them in the regular season. I'm not saying that you ought to be jumping on the bandwagon. By the way, I'm going to throw this up, and hopefully this works because I see the question here from Brent. I'm going to throw the link up in the chat to the official box score from Iowa. So hopefully that works, folks, and you can get the official box score for the game tonight. And I'm not going to run through it again. They did give up 51% shooting to Minnesota-Duluth. So there is that. Yeah. They're not going to be a great defensive team, Ryan. They just don't have enough guys that are great defenders. They lose Tony Perkins. And by the way, Ryan, they defer, and I said this earlier to one of our callers, Fran consistently defers to his shooters and the guys who are going to put points up over his defenders. So even though they brought in Thelwell and Traore, who were the guys that didn't play much down the stretch today, Thelwell and Traore. So hopefully Fran will be more situational, but history tells me he's going to defer more toward Price, Brock, Peyton, and Peyton's the best player on the court. I get that, but he's going to defer guys that can shoot. Cooper Koch is another one. So it is what it is.
Last question, football related.
Sure.
So obviously we know where Brendan Sullivan transferred from, and we know who we're playing tomorrow. Does that pretty much seal the deal that Kirk's going to stick with the status quo like he always has and always will? Or is the, apocalypse going to happen and the earth shakes and Kirk shocks the world and actually makes sense at quarterback for a change?
I don't know if you caught my preview earlier today, Ryan. If
no,
not,
I didn't.
Watch it. I think we'll see Sullivan, but I got ripped so much for making a prediction about Michigan State and being wrong. I just felt like the tone from Kirk during his press conference this week was a little different. We may have heard a bit of a Freudian slip when he made the comment that when Brendan gets an expanded role, and then he corrected himself and he said, if Brendan gets an expanded role. I don't think he was talking about next season.
He might have been next year.
Maybe. But I honestly think, and behind closed doors, Kirk has said this week as well, he's frustrated by the slow starts. And so my guess is this: Cade will start, but if he's playing badly at the end of the first quarter, I bet we'll see Brendan in the second. That's my guess. Maybe sooner. I don't think Kirk will wait until the second half. I think he either puts somebody new in the first, or we don't see Brendan at all. That's my guess.
I can't remember one time in 26 seasons where Kirk made a halftime switch. Made a switch before halftime. I can't remember before halftime.
I'm thinking of Northwestern from like 3 years ago when he brought in Padilla, but then we heard after the game it was because Petras was banged up. Remember that?
Yeah. They did do that that Northwestern game where the crazy protesters delayed the game.
Yes, they did.
And it was an awful. I remember that game so well because it was a microcosm of why I'm so frustrated as an Iowa fan. That was a god-awful Northwestern team. We should have beat them by 4 touchdowns, and we beat them 17-12.
That's your mid-November gift, Ryan. So
we'll see.
Anyway.
We'll see. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, folks. I told everybody I wouldn't do an hour-long post-game show, but here we are, about 56 minutes in. If you missed any of the show, you can watch it, rewind, and watch the entire post-game show once it's posted, which will be right away as soon as we're done here. But again, the Iowa Hawkeyes, your men, Iowa men, defeating Minnesota-Duluth on the hardwood, 102-81, behind 59% shooting from the field in spite of just 7 makes from 3. So work the ball around. solid in a lot of facets. Point guard play needs to be better. Too many turnovers between Brock and Thelwell. And then I think you just got to figure out who are your 6 to 8 guys. Like, what's the order of rotation? I think Fran's probably still working through some of that. But it's clear, based on what we saw this evening, that Mulvey, Kingsbury, and Tajo, those are 3 scholarship guys who are unlikely to be in the mix. Now, Fran's not going to go on the air and say that, but those guys are unlikely to be in the mix. Not a surprise, but I think the other guys will have a chance, all 10 of them. And, and then what happens at the 5 behind Freeman? Is it really bronze, or is it, 5 by committee? Is it sometimes Dembele, Traore? It doesn't sound like they want Traore playing the 5 very much. So it's interesting stuff. But I think the biggest thing, point guard play has got to be better. They just didn't get enough from Brock and Thelwell. Too many mistakes, not enough open shot making. Brock Harding missed 3 wide open threes, turned the ball over too much. But yeah, that's that. It's an exhibition game. We'll see Iowa against Texas A&M Commerce in less than 2 weeks. I will be with you tomorrow following Iowa and Northwestern on the Gridiron. That's a 2:30 p.m. Central Time kick, and live postgame coverage with myself and Coach Don Patterson following the Hawkeyes and the Wildcats. Enjoy the game tomorrow, folks, and we'll talk to you on the postgame.